Melbourne a better investment, Queensland a better investment, rural a better investment, Metro Sydney a better investment, being pulled from pillar to post investors. We're going to talk about some of the data we're seeing long term. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
Good morning,
Economists.
Mr. Novak, real estate extraordinaire.
Economist, one Josh Wapshot, the guy that's got all of the numbers going on.
Yeah, and I thought this morning's topic has been popping up a little bit more than usual, and I do hear, we just spoke about it before we went live, Mark. You probably hear you say this or have this conversation 4 or 5 times a week with certain buyers. The secret emerging towns, the old Melbourne, Queensland, Perth is probably a big one that's through the headlines at the moment. Just read the AFR article on proposed growth over there. They're saying something like 16%. But is it longevity? Is it short term? Is it long term? Does it work in the full cycle of property? I think that's something that you could enlighten us with, Mark. I know you've got some real life examples.
We're talking people's life savings. And I don't think people get that. I don't think people position themselves to say, okay, look, I'm going to make an investment of $500,000. And when I die, I'm probably going to have $1.5 million. And I think they don't position themselves to think, if I make this bad investment or this unproven or untested investment and it doesn't come good, it's going to bite me in the bum in the end.
Yes.
So I just think people got to be real careful about their decisions they're making with investment property, because a bad decision compounds over time. And I had this discussion with my daughter's boyfriend, and one of them has purchased a property a year ago. One of them has not. They're intending both to buy. They were a year ago. One did not. $100,000 is what one went up in that year. And I said, that's a tragic waste of money. I said, because that $100,000 that you didn't make today or in the last year, if you compound that from the age of 25 to 65, it's well over $1 million. Just that $100,000. So I encourage everyone to take this conversation really seriously this morning, because if you're not making that right investment now in the right city, state, town, it's going to compound badly or well.
Definitely. And I think, one of the big things I probably see out there when talking to investors, being in the commercial side of property, you're talking to a lot of investors every day. And I have seen a dramatic increase in people popping up with interstate options, and they seem to be chasing higher yields. But something that really enlightens them is, I say to them, how long do you intend to hold this asset? Generally, most of them are anywhere between sort of that 5, 6, 7, 8 year mark. Your average hold is 10. And yeah, they're looking for some long-term yield rather than putting the money in the bank or a stock market of such. But it's a bit short-sighted, because what they're not seeing is the big picture. And I think once you calculate that difference in yield between, say, something in Sydney versus something in Queensland or Perth, what they're really missing is that equity growth over that same period. And once you couple the yield and your growth in equity and compare the two, seems like 99.9% of the time, Sydney's the winner.
It's the quick yield is the quick fix. It's the like, what's in my hand today and tomorrow. It's the rent. It's that year. Capital growth is a long-term thing that you can't bloody spend. So it's a very attractive prospect, that yield, which is that rent coming in. So people will chase that higher rent in a different area, because It's the yield. It's the upfront. Yeah, I can spend it. It improves life today, but at the sacrifice of what? And I say this to people all day, every day. It's 1 part rent and it's 2 part capital growth. I'll say it again. It's 1 part rent, it's 2 part capital growth. Say your rent's 5%, say your capital growth is 10%. You start compounding that puppy over 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, it is massive. And people chase that rent, that 1 part of 3 parts. They chase that rent 5% or 6%. Sounds better to me. I'm going to go by that. But they don't get the 10%. They don't get the 10%. And it's like, you idiot. You went and chased the yield, but the capital growth did jack over a long-term period. Don't be deceived that, it's going to do well because of a train line. How long? For 1 year, for 5 years, for an Olympics? For 1 year, for 5 years? I'm talking 10, 20. When that shit compounds, that's a lot of money in capital growth. Again, I'll say it. 1 part is rent, 2 part is capital growth. That's an investment property making money.
Yeah, well, that definitely hits home what you've just said there, Mark. And I think, unless you're sort of in property every day, or you're really into your investing, you forget about that long-term aspect, and probably that 2 parts capital growth, 1 part rent is probably the biggest thing I think viewers from this morning's talk should take home with them, because I'm seeing it. Up at our storage units, had a guy come past on, what are these yielding at? Net 6.5. Oh, well, I've got 10. And I said, well, you're spending, what are you spending, 200? And he goes, no, I'm spending 1.4. I said, okay, well, you're spending 1.4 million. And then you have that conversation about the equity. And I think what people are missing here is that longevity. Generally, you do see it with these emerging towns of such. They do have short-term growth spurts, but are they sustained? Not from what I've seen in my research. Generally, at some point, they come back to where they were. Guys, and how I would describe it, Mark and I were speaking to you earlier, when you've got property prices rising, and you could buy, say, for example, a property for 2.5 million out in the inner west, which is probably cheaper out there at the moment, and you compare that to, say, somewhere in the northern beaches where you can enter that same market. Once you start to drive those prices to a certain level, it becomes a point saying, am I going to spend the same money here in A, or am I going to spend the same money in B? And 10 times, that's going to be a better location where you're spending the same money for the same product. So I think that's what happens with these emerging town cities. They get that big spurt of growth. Everyone jumps in. But what ends up happening is the prices get to a certain level and you go, hey, is there any value there more? Is there any, value to build in this purchase? No, I'm going to look elsewhere. And that's where it tends to come back to your stronger markets such as Sydney.
Make no mistake, you're not coming back. You're not coming back, because the amount of discussions, I've been an agent for 32 years, and the amount of conversations I've had with people that are like, I ain't coming back. It's like, what do you mean you ain't coming back? It's like, well, we left 18, 15, 12 years ago, and what the market here in Sydney did compared to where we went, it just went off. We can't come back. With the house we sold, we can't come back to. And why are they coming back? For whatever reason, they can't afford to come back. So I want to give 2 comparisons before I go. One is a barbarian outlook, a very archaic outlook on our property market. You must remember that when all things come and go, what's left? The reason why Sydney performs well is for very, very basic fundamental reasons. Yes, there's beautiful waterways. Okay, that's forever. Yes, there's the CBD, our CBD, sure, that's there. But think about the forever things. The climate is a massive one in any city in the world. Climatically, to be better will always attract more people climatically. When I say climatically, I mean, yes, the weather, I mean weather patterns, I mean flooding, I mean, you go south to Melbourne, well, it's cooler. You go north to Queensland, well, it's hotter. Well, guess what? Sydney's the perfect climate. So you got to understand why captains of industry and everyone are attracted to Sydney and places like that. It's for very basic fundamental reasons, and that's not very sexy. It's something that doesn't change 10 generations later. That's why Sydney's good. Now, expensive is a hard thing. Expensive is generally good, and expensive is generally expensive because it's good. Now, I know if you're investing, that's where you want to put your money. Expensive is generally good. People are voting with their money. This is better. So if most people are doing that, the more expensive the area gets, it's got to be a good area. Not for everyone though. And Josh, before we go, can we talk about the second thing, which was the tradies tool from Bunnings and from because I think that analogy is a great analogy for property.
Yeah, definitely, and I think it fits perfectly. For your tradie out there, it's getting the $30 drill versus the Milwaukee $200 drill. And the whole idea behind that, guys, is you buy the $30 one, you probably end up spending more than the $200 option, because by the time you're replacing that $30 cheap tool, it doesn't do what it's meant to do. You end up spending more than buying the right quality product. And I think that's that sort of analogy there of looking outside of Sydney. And if there's a price behind it, that means there's demand, and there's demand for a reason. So I think that fits perfectly.
And don't forget, the tradies have tested these tools. They've done the hard work for you. The tradies been on that Milwaukee tool every day for 450 days or 1450 days, and he votes this is the best tool. It's the property market's doing the same thing, that quality is voted in and you have to pay for it. But if you want to be a true professional, you've got to have the best. And I think if you want to be a true investor, you invest in the best. And I think proven over and over I'm talking generations, guys. I'm not talking the last 3 years. I'm talking 30, 50 years. Sydney's the beast. Sydney's the best.
Definitely. And I think, guys, to take home from this discussion, investing outside, Mark's got real examples where they've invested interstate. They've now priced themselves out of the Sydney market because of that difference in growth of holding the asset versus here versus there. And I think the other big one is 2 parts equity, 1 part rent. Those are probably the biggest things that hit home from our discussion this morning. And I think
chase your equity. Chase your equity. It's twice as powerful. What's Lisa saying?
People sold freshwater houses for farms. What performed better? Well, I think we all know the answer to that one, and it's a very good point. Funnily enough, I actually had a gentleman I was dealing with a warehouse. He said he owned the house in the Northern Beaches, moved out to land, and he was saying to me, the biggest mistake I ever made was selling that property and moving out, because I look back at what it's worth now. I could be enjoying my retirement a lot easier than what I am now.
It's a bloody hard mess to clean up. Go with reliable, go with quality, stick to Sydney, stick to the Northern Beaches even, Thanks, legend.
Thanks, Mark.
See ya. Bye.